2 titles, and you're just like, well, why does John Cena have 2 titles? It shouldn't be the case. Then you have the match, and you're like, I want another. Then you have what we had, the hour-long Iron Man match, and you're just like, I love this rivalry. So to that point, I'm like, I'm coming from the perspective of like, hey, listen, as soon as I heard, like, you had me until you were like, yo, the storyline has to match the match. It doesn't. And that's because
it should, but
it should.
It have to.
It does, exactly. Backstage Brawl, y'all already know what it is. Back at it again with another episode. I am, of course, the golden child, Jean-Louis, along with the usual suspects. We have Kid Ty, Tyler Hicks. We have Diamond Cutter, Eric B. We have the People's Champion, Randy Lewis. Here to bring you the wrestling news of the week, kicking it off. Monday Night Raw is about to be, kicking into high gear, but we haven't been with you for a while. We're here to recap the news of last week because there was so much things that went on, whether it was AEW, whether it was Halloween Havoc, NXT, SmackDown, Raw, TNA Impact, NXT, UK, name it. But beforehand, Big E, People's Champ, they were telling you about the origin story of how Backstage Brawl worked out, because it did mark I believe it was the 7-year anniversary of the Backstage Brawl being founded. And guys, I want that story, man.
I remember.
How did we come to be? How did we become?
First and foremost, I've known Deshaun for about basically over 25 years now. And for some apparent reason, we kind of touched base after years of not talking. And he was doing his thing, and I know he was starting his music. And he was like, "Yo, I see you posting stuff because I'm very social on social media, so I was posting wrestling stuff." And I was kind of mad about a Raw and this and the third. And Deshaun was like, "Yo, you want to do something about it? Open up a wrestling page and have your own opinion." And I thought he was BSing at the time. And then a couple of days later, I started seeing these mad messages on my phone, and these new guys, was in the chat. Then it was the original crew of Marcus, Leak, and my boy Smooth, and then Eric alongside with Deshaun. And I kind of said, introduced myself, but checked in from time to time, but never really going immensely into it. And then as things kind of got serious, we was watching Raw one time, and then it was a good conversation going, and we just started talking. And Deshaun, being the master collaborator, the master planner, he brought things together. And then he hit it off quickly. It just clicked. It was like lighting in the bottle in terms of how we clicked so fast. And then all of a sudden, we was like, yo, we might as well just do the page, for real. We might as well go full-fledged on it. And at the time I wasn't in school, so I was like, all right, cool. We can definitely do that. So, it definitely kept myself occupied for that 6-month stretch when I wasn't in school. And then we started talking, and it's ironic because we started the page in October of 2013, and then we rode that wave because it's funny because we rode that wave right when Yes-O-Mania happened. This is the Daniel Bryan's peak run to the top, and it just went so crazy. It started off slow, obviously, but it literally picked up right after Mania. Right after Taker lost the streak. We legit got it just started steamrolling. And everything kind of just went from there. Aaron Riff for No DQ messaged us at one point in time, telling us certain cues and things, trying to get other pages to help us out. Some of them aren't around anymore, or either that or consolidated. But, they basically shouted us out, told us to follow the page. Before, the wrestling group chat or chat rooms on Facebook were a thing, it was just a spotlight. It was another page, and it was just No DQ. It wasn't many people. It was just us, but we were the smallest of the totem pole. No DQ in the spotlight Spotlight was just getting themselves going. I'm not gonna get into the business of that, but they were starting to get themselves going as well. And it was just no DQ at the top, and we're just all the way down here. But the fact that Aaron Riff was able to come and help us out, and even follow us on Twitter when we first started, he definitely gave us a lot of tips in terms of establishing a page and getting news and whatnot. So that was something that was huge for us. You want to add anything, E?
Yeah. One, it doesn't even feel like 7 years. Doesn't.
Don't
feel like 7 years. So just to piggyback off of what Randy said, like it was literally, I wasn't there for the original conversation. I was added into the group chat, so it was just like ad after ad after ad after ad after ad. And when the originals got in there, it was just like we all had a mind for wrestling because we all watch wrestling. So it was just like we all clicked, and it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, we just start spitballing ideas and everything. I think in our first week we had like 400 likes. I want to say in our first week. In our first week we had 400 likes, and that's back then in 2013. That's huge to have on Facebook page. Like that was big. Like now we're at 40,000, but it's even now like 40,000 is just like it's crazy to even think that we got 40,000 likes. But just like Randy said, like before these groups and everything got real big on Facebook, like that was what you had to do to go find wrestling news on Facebook. Unless you had friends that watch wrestling and put it on their news feed, it was us. It was us, No DQ, other major wrestling places out there to get their outlet from. And we were basically, I mean, there was no competition, but we're not competing against each other. But it was just basically everyone got their wrestling outlet and their wrestling news from all those other pages, including us. I was actually doing I was doing the original, for anybody who doesn't know our original name, Reality of Wrestling was our first name.
Yeah.
So when we first did Reality of Wrestling, I was actually doing a CM Punk page. It was strictly just CM Punk news, CM Punk anything. Like I started doing that. And I told them, I was like, hey, listen, I got another Facebook page that I admin. Do you want to plug it in on this one? And I was like, yeah, we'll plug it in, whatever. Plugged it in, and I think we went from like being maybe a few thousand to going up to like almost like 20,000 in that same week. So it was like ridiculous. Like we've had periods of time where we as a page really thrived. And you want to talk about originals, Karen was even in with us at one point.
Yes. Oh, hold on. Shout out to Make New York Grimy again. The first lady of the Backstage Brawl. Definitely. Karen Garcia. Yo, like
Karen, personal issues aside between her and Deshaun, but Karen was really that person that was in with us that was really cool. Like she was one of the dudes with us, man. Like she had another one, great wrestling mind. I would love for Karen to come in with us one day to be on the podcast with us one of these days. But Karen was in with us. We had a couple of outside people in with us at one point in time, but we didn't put them in like the main chat. But
I remember, you want to talk about the Genesis Network real quick?
Genesis Network. Oh man. Okay, so we had our own network when WWE was actually getting big with their network. When they introduced their network, we introduced ours, which was Genesis. And shouts out to Marcus. I know Marcus is doing his thing with his record label and everything. And I would love for another person I would love to come in on the podcast. I would love for him to come back full time with us. But
I know he's busy doing it.
He's busy. I'm not even mad at it. Marcus basically made the website, had us writing articles, made the Genesis Network. I mean, if you couldn't watch Ring of Honor and Impact and all of that, we had it for you on that website.
We had it.
Like,
damn, Vincent, son. Oh my God,
we had it for you. You didn't have to worry about, oh man, I can't watch Bound for Glory tonight. Oh wait, I can go on the Genesis Network on the Backstage Brawl website.
And remember, before Google Duo, we used to do live streams with the fans, and they used to interact with us too.
Definitely did.
That. Oh my God!
Like anybody who was watching the pay-per-views or the shows or anything like that, we definitely live streamed. But we've really grown from 7 years. Even doing this podcast, like me and Randy, this was originally me and Randy's thing. me and Randy talked about this, and we were like, yo, we got to do a podcast, man. Because it's just like Randy said, when me and Randy didn't even know each other. I didn't know Randy didn't know me, but we just clicked right away. It was just, I've known Randy my whole life. You know what I mean? So it was just naturally right that we just do a podcast and we come here. And then, later down the road, me and Gene came in, JJ came in, Tyler came in, Carl came in with his mind and what he does with the sports hit list and everything.
Hey,
and that was just great.
Carl's the reason why we do this now.
Yeah, Carl is definitely the reason why we do this now.
Before the politics with the spotlight that he did before, he started the spotlight. Let's just make that clear.
Right.
Okay.
So
and he's the reason why we're a group today. So without the Podfather, like I call him, none of this would have happened. And
we like the strong additions that we do have, that's what made us today. So, definitely, big shouts out to anybody. I don't know if some of the originals watch the show. I know Smooth watches the show from time to time. I know Deshaun watches the show from time to time. But if any other originals, Marcus, Karen, Malik, if any of you guys watch the show, yo, thank you, bro. Thank you. Because without y'all, we couldn't have been here. And it's just like I said, it was just a great time for everything that happened. And we came in at a very pivotal time where wrestling honestly kind of got a little boring. Wrestling kind of got boring before the whole Daniel Bryan situation and everything. And we came in right at the right time. And it was just it was great to see that. So it was great to have, fan support, friend support, support amongst each other. It was just great to have it. So definitely that's how we came together. That's how we are able to celebrate, 7 years now going into 2021, going to be 8 years as a page. And hopefully, when we hit the 10-year mark, we can all do something together and we can put it on the YouTube page. And hopefully this podcast will be even bigger than what it is now.
Hopefully we get some sponsors, man.
Right. We get sponsors or something,
Before we move on, I definitely like to preface by saying this because I know we got to move on to other things. It goes without saying in terms of how much love and appreciation that we have for one another and those that give us a lot of love in terms of what we've been able to do. Despite the pandemic being what it was a blessing in disguise, the fact that we were able to do this podcast to begin with in the first place. And I'm just grateful. And then now we're at a boom time, especially for us being 4 African-American men who love wrestling. You start to see these pages of Black people who love wrestling because it was so taboo, for people to kind of show their fandom. And now that they're showing their fandom, you see pages like the Jobber Tears podcast who are doing an incredible job. And then, of course, see the Dirty Heels podcast, my boys up in Harlem. A shout out, we will definitely see y'all in December, best believe. And you see all these other pages that are messing with us, the Talk of Champions, the Circle of Wrestling posts, wrestling news that just follow us as well, showing us love. And just so many people, it's an outlet, and we're not competing with one another. That's the best thing about it. We're all getting a chance to basically collaborate together, be friendly with each other, have relationships, and that's what I want for all of us to do. I know certain people, I'm not gonna say no names, may not rock with us in that way if we wanted to collab, but that's on them. But I love the fact that there's no ego, there's nothing but love, and I definitely appreciate y'all. And for the Dirty Heels, y'all also had anniversary the same week as we do, so shout out to y'all. We love you guys, and thank you so much for the love and appreciation, and here's to 7 years more and beyond.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. And at the end of the day, we're wrestling community. It IWC, however you may interpret it. There's all these different denominations. Of course, we touch based on it. You guys both touch based on it. Just the Black wrestling fan. You know what I mean? Again, it being taboo, and of course, seeing all those different things fall in line. So it's pretty dope to see that. It's dope to see you guys. You know what I mean? How you guys have grown over the course of those past 7 years, and the fact that now conveyed out to the audience. They know that when we say y'all tag team from the jump, fit a hand in glove. It's a hard foundation or it's a APA with Bradshaw and Farouk. I don't know who's Bradshaw. I don't know who the fuck is Farouk. But
it don't matter. We both drinking.
both drinking.
Like we both drinking and kicking ass.
We laying down the law, especially here on the Backstage Brawl. So this past week, had the Monday.
I got one thing to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real wrestling fans will get this. 7 is a shit gimmick.
Oh, yo, you know who would appreciate that? Talk of Champions. I'm not saying it's a plug because she's a big WCW buff, so she would definitely get a kick out of this.
Yeah, that's.
She sees this now.
Damn.
Yeah, she sees it now. Like, oh my, it's like I'm gonna get your ass because she's a huge WCW buff. So I ain't trying to ruffle no feathers.
Pretty
at
soon,
all.
we're gonna have to like discuss like the worst debuts ever. Like we're just gonna have to.
Nothing topping Shockmaster. I'm
yeah.
Right now.
Oh no.
Maybe the Gobbledygooker.
Why did they not?
Gobbledygooker is the worst.
By
far.
That I have no.
By far. That's the worst.
A bedazzled stormtrooper helmet, fat guy in the over. Yeah, that
shit was funny, but the guy was terrible.
You know what?
They did that shit on purpose.
That's a good plug. That's a good plug. You know why? Because for all the wrestling that we had this week, I thought it would probably be a good idea to encompass it with just giving out our hot takes. And I know as we get on to this, hopefully it's an exercise where as we talk about the respective hot takes, we get another idea and then we just toss it out there as it pertains to whether it be Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW. I'll start it off. You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
So, Big E mentioned Hell in a Cell was one of the best, if not the best pay-per-view of this year for WWE. I'm going to say that it was bested this past week as a best television show and best pay-per-view. NXT from top to bottom was the best television show last week this year, period. And I'll explain to you why. Ain't nobody looked weak on that show. The wrestling was fantastic. The storylines were hilarious, from hilarious to like just building character arcs. And for all intents and purposes, it got Randy People's Champ to mention Cameron Grimes. The name, just say the name Cameron Grimes. That tells you in and of itself. All those different things. You were invested from start to finish on to the point of which it was on some GM mode where at the end of the pay-per-view, everyone got like a 10 popularity increase. That's how good NXT was to me. That's my hot take of the week. NXT was the very best pay-per-view.
And it did it without the NXT championship.
What you guys think? What do you guys think? That's a hot take. That's the hot take.
You already know I'm on your side because I hyped up NXT Halloween Havoc last episode. I told y'all it was going to be great.
And shout out to Tyler's new bae, aka Shotzi Blackheart, for being an incredible host.
Hold up, let's not do things now. Hold up, wait. Hold up. No, she did a great job. Hosting jobs are weird in WWE pay-per-views and special events because usually they look at that as like, oh, you should be on the card. But it's a great opportunity to show your personality and your character. And for a person like Shotzi Blackheart, who's she killed it, and she's thrived off being outrageous or having these like, spots where she's supposed to be like, a personality. I think one of the things most people recognize her for in NXT outside of her wrestling ability and some of the crazy bumps she takes is like moments where she's just doing something like meme worthy, like running over people with her tank. So that's kind of like, this is her wheelhouse. Like she can pull these things off really well. And we knew she would. All the costume changes. Dear God, some of them look really creative, really beautiful. They were all Instagram worthy. So careful. I'm very happy. Be careful. I'm being you the one that's over here dropping shit. I'm actually being respectful here. All right. We know who runs the Instagram stories on the Backstage Brawl.
I'm just basically saying, it's tongue in cheek, man. You never take it far.
Before I beat your ass.
Listen, I ain't Ryan, all right? I know where you
are. I agree.
Pull up then. I will fight you on the front lawn, man. I agree. Jump off my porch and elbow drop you.
That show, Halloween Havoc was really good. I like the fact that Pete Dunne turned heel. I like that. I like it a lot. You know, anybody who knows me, who's been watching this, they know the Undisputed Era are my boys. But I have to admit, they've been getting their asses handed to them the past couple of weeks on NXT TV.
You know,
they got their asses handed to them again.
I just like how it comes
Pat
across.
McAfee, I have to give him props yet again. Pat McAfee, once again, is showing that he belongs in this sport because, hey, I gotta give it to him.
He went from being the heir apparent to Jerry Lawler's Attitude Era outrageousness on commentary to basically he basically is NXT's version of Jerry Lawler, and it's kind of crazy because he's throwing his money around on some mercenary type shit, just hiring killers. I mean, between what was his name from the 1 and the 2s with Martin Stone and Oney Lorcan, who's had a hell of an in-ring run this year with the matches with Timothy Thatcher, especially. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, what was it? He just recently got injured. His name is Ridge Holland and Pete Dunne. Like, if Ridge didn't get hurt, imagine that stable backing you up. Who's fucking with that 4-man group? Like, you gonna be picking up more teeth than you can think of thoughts trying to come up with an idea of what to do to stop that group. Like,
how quick, like, how long until Regal says, War Games?
I give it 2 weeks.
There it is. You heard it here first.
Why are we agreeing so damn much?
Who owns who a soda?
It's the anniversary. It's the 7th year. It's synergy.
So much,
you know.
Who owns who a soda?
I don't know. It was just
the man who you can actually see their face gets the soda.
Okay.
Yeah. Nah. Fuck you and your ceiling light, Seth Rollins fan. That's your gimmick.
Listen, my man Seth Rollins hadn't been doing nothing newsworthy yet. So
you are a black silhouette right now.
All right. Anybody got a hot take?
I'm Jey Uso. Let's talk about it. Jey Uso joining Roman. Roman actually coming out saying that, listen, you got to fall in line by the end of the night. He was at the top of the show on SmackDown this past Friday. Jey Uso basically had a great showing with one Daniel Bryan. I thought that was a very good match, very strong showing for Jey Uso. And shout out to Daniel Bryan too. I know Daniel Bryan has something to do with the backstage politics on SmackDown. Yep, he's definitely writing. And you know, him being that sacrificial lamb to Jey Uso to be that, you know, that martyr to further that storyline, it's really good. And I also heard a rumor that Jimmy will be able to compete as early as 2021. So be on the lookout for him probably around the Rumble time, maybe. Maybe a little bit after.
And they're like, it's rumored that they're all gonna get scrapped.
Yeah, there's rumored that they're all gonna, you know, align themselves with Roman. And they're either gonna be the bloodline like they were supposed to be years ago.
The Owen Dynasty, damn it.
Or that's the other name. But either way, Vince is supposedly on board.
Yeah. So there's something there with a take that I was thinking of. I wasn't sure how strongly I felt about it, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. We're talking about Samoa Joe. We're talking about The Rock. We're talking about all these different potential candidates, Goldberg, all these potential candidates for Roman Reigns. Hot take, based off of the character arc that Roman has been undertaking, this whole truth serum character that he's had, more or less, adopting his true natural heelish tendencies and applying them on television, according to Mean Gene and others who believe so. Hot take city, Daniel Bryan, viable candidate, Royal Rumble. Not Royal Rumble, WrestleMania opponent for Roman Reigns.
That's pretty cool.
37.
That wouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route either. And I think that's a great thing for Roman. It tells you how much they have invested in Roman. That's number one. Because right now, the fact that he's killing this current run, it makes the opponents and fantasy matches and the fantasy booking that they're trying to scramble abroad that much sweeter, because you have to really, really think and ponder in the back of your mind, you know, we're already scrambling. Like Ty, myself, Big E, we all like for a good 40 minutes, few weeks back, we're basically talking about you having Samoa Joe as the exiled one to face Roman Reigns. Whereas me, I did kind of go the Vince route by saying you should have The Rock versus Roman Reigns because it's the biggest money match you can possibly make. But having a guy like Daniel Bryan won't be too far-fetched because now you have an in with the story from what happened this past week.
Even beyond that,
Yes,
Roman could cut a promo and be like, "You are the reason why I've never been able to have the success that I wanted.
That's it.
5 years ago, I won the Rumble, and all they talked about was you. 5 years ago, I was in the main event of WrestleMania, and I couldn't have my moment because of you. I beat you at Fastlane. I have nothing left to prove. But everywhere I go, I get met with hate, with disdain, because of you. And then now I get to eat at the table that I set for my family. And you still manage to find a way to ruin it." And that would be the essential crux of the story. Just the fact that everyone talks about it took Roman 5 years to get to this point. Well, what's the big reason why it took 5 years?
You know,
And before you go, Biggie,
right.
he can also apply the logic of course, you know, we had like the news of Roman commenting on CM Punk. He was like, I still don't like the guy. He can throw him into the story. Mm-hmm. All right, he's not coming back to WWE. Fine. You could throw him his like just how Sami Zayn mentioned AEW, Roman could name drop CM Punk. Boom. All the possibilities are so endless with that. Biggie, take it.
But aren't you happy that Roman has options this year?
I was just going to say that.
All stories would be money. Like any way you go, it's like the story. Any person you choose would be a great story.
Rocket makes sense. Samoa Joe, which we'll get to in a future upload, will make sense. Daniel Bryan makes sense. Not to take away from your time, Biggie, but I'm just saying, like, when was the last time you had Roman Reigns have a Mania match? Like, one, you look forward to a Roman Reigns Mania match outside of 31 or maybe 32, depending on your taste.
Oh.
But on top of that, now you have multiple Mania matches you could look forward to Roman being in. I don't think we could ever say that. I think that's a hot take in itself. This is the hottest Mania for Roman with no fans. That's my hot take. This is the hottest Mania for Roman that he's ever had.
I'm going to say this. Didn't we talk about this a few weeks ago when Drew was champion? We talked about the different routes that can happen with Drew McIntyre.
Yes.
We were talking about, Drew could actually get the title back or retain the title and move on. Or Randy might become champion and move on. Then all of us forgot Bray Wyatt got drafted back to Raw.
Yeah.
A whole monkey wrench in everybody's plan. Even when he was SmackDown, same thing with Roman, because the Fiend's whole gimmick was this. He changes people. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's now we're on the flip side of it, on the SmackDown side, and Roman has 4 potential opponents for this upcoming Mania. And it's like, like Tyler said, we're all genuinely excited. When can you say that you were honestly excited for Roman and versus whoever it might be? And if you want to throw somebody else in there, I mean, I haven't heard anything about his contract or anything, but Brock Lesnar is another person, even though a lot of people don't want to see it.
You have 5. You have Rock, you have Goldberg, you have
I forgot
Bryan.
No, ain't nobody care about Goldberg.
Somebody mute his mic. I'm not going through this again.
Ain't nobody care.
You got Rock, Bryan, Goldberg, Samoa Joe, and who was the other one? Bryan, Rock, Samoa Joe. You also have the possibility. I know Cena was another one people were throwing around, the final Mania match with Cena. But my thing is, like, the fact that you even have these options and they all could work from a storyline perspective in terms of continuity makes sense. And I'm happy that he has that, which is why I'm saying my hot take is this is the hottest Mania for Roman ever. With all the matches he has had on paper against Brock, Triple H, Undertaker, Drew McIntyre himself before the hype really set in that he was that type of guy. Like, no offense to what he did before, but I'm saying in terms of like him really finding himself, which none of us thought would happen as a babyface. We all thought it would be as a heel. So credit to Drew on that front as well. But like, when have you ever really felt this excited? If anything, we were just waiting for Roman's match to be over.
Right.
Mania. We just wanted it done. I remember specifically WrestleMania 32, and I actually liked the match at 32, to be quite honest with you. That's probably a hot take in itself, but I was like, okay, Roman's finally got the championship. He could have his long-ass run, and we can finally get this over with. And then Adderall happened, but that's a whole nother story. My point being is I wanted it over. The Brock match, I didn't want it to happen, and it was a pleasant surprise that it turned out pretty good. The match with Taker, I never wanted that booked. Nobody wanted that booked.
That's a fact.
And, so, yeah, that's my hot take, Gene. That's my hot take.
I didn't say my hot take yet, so.
What's your hot take?
Go ahead, man.
It doesn't have anything to do with WWE. The feud between the Young Bucks and FTR has underwhelmed. That it's been a very underwhelming feud.
Oh shit.
And even FTR has even alluded to the fact that it's underwhelmed, and because you have to understand, since 2016, the best tag teams or the best known tag teams in all professional wrestling has been the Revival, which when they were in WWE, and the Young Bucks when they were in New Japan as the Bullet Club, with Kenny and then those guys, aka the Elite, their section of the Bullet Club. 2019 into 2020, the FTR was finally granted their release from their WWE contracts, and you knew where they were going to go. You knew what match everyone wanted to see. Everyone's like, AEW, idiots. Even though I wanted them to go to NWA because I felt like they fit like a glove over there. Like NWA, they fit like a glove. Impact, especially with the Wolves and the Good Brothers, but let's beside that. When they showed up to AEW, it was kind of like, oh my God, FTR is here. And it was like you wanted they're the biggest free agent tag teams around at the time, and you kind of undersold their introduction. And then because their execution was kind of poor. And then you wait all this time now going into full gear to basically have a match. We should be talking about this match being the top tag team match that could possibly main event that night. And it's not being talked about. The most things being talked about right now is Jericho and MJF, and neither of them have a main title. And the fact that their main title is not even hyped up, because what I'm hearing is Moxley might lose because he has a situation to do, in New Japan. I heard he's finally dropping the title. Thank God. So I heard that's finally happening. But as it pertains to the tag team championships, if there's one thing that AEW, All Elite Wrestling, has that WWE wishes that they had right now, it is a stable tag team that they can basically they can maneuver, they can do whatever they want. It's like it's a smorgasbord of great talent. They don't know what to do with it in a sense, and I know it's their first year, but at the end of the day,
no more excuses. This is year 2 now.
There's no more excuses. Even in their first year, because I know Jay would like to be like devil's advocate and it's their first year. No, not even that. Because you've been around wrestling companies long enough to know how to basically market these teams if they are good enough to basically be at the top. And like we talked about last week in terms of the rating system, even though Tyler says the rating system wasn't a bad idea, you have to make certain things work and matter in their division. And so far this year, they haven't. Now you're just making this makeshift match for Full Gear. To me, this match should have been done at All Out, which is usually their coup de grace show of the year. It should have been done then. it should have been done then, and they didn't pull a trigger on it. Like, upon their arrival, the first people that you should basically meet is the Young Bucks. You dragged this out for 4 months now, and now you're putting it at full gear. Sure, it's a great match to have, but is it the match that basically going to sell if we had fans? Is it going to sell enough tickets to fill an arena for that match with the way you're booking it now? No.
So I'm gonna piggyback off of what you just said. I'm very critical on AEW because I want AEW to actually thrive.
Same here.
But the fact of the matter is this match has been years in the making. And the fact that nobody's really talking about it that much, it's kind of underwhelming. It's very underwhelming. So, like, the big matches on the card, of course, Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley, which I love Eddie Kingston to death. I really hope he wins.
Shout out to you.
Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page.
You knew that was going to happen. That's going to be the best match. That's going to be the best match of the night.
If Kenny does not turn heel this weekend, I'm going to be disappointed. So that needs to happen. The Chris Jericho and MJF. That's a whole thing.
It's the most talked about match right now.
Most talked about matches, and mind you, you still have the AEW Women's Champion on the card. You still have the TNT title on the line on the card, and nobody is talking about those things. But the main thing, this FTR and Young Bucks tag team match, this should be one of those hyped matches. This should be one of their main events, if not close to the main event. And like I said, I'm critical on AEW on their booking. I'm critical on AEW and how they do things, and they book this completely wrong. Completely wrong. Like, if this should have been done, and it's not All Out that's their big pay-per-view, it's Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is their big pay-per-view.
I mean, in terms of when they became a company, All Out is basically a WrestleMania.
They started with All Out, but I think it's Double or Nothing. I think Double or Nothing is their real big one that they normally go for. But it can be argued. It can be argued. But the point is that the Young Bucks and FTR, hopefully I pray that this match shows up and exceeds expectations and has everyone thinking, okay, I should have paid more attention.
You see
just
that?
like they did Edge and Randy.
You know what I'm afraid of? You know what I'm afraid of? You know what I'm afraid of? Because considering how All Out turned out,
mm-hmm.
I'm afraid if they do the match the way that we all hope they do, that they'll do fine. But because of how bad All Out's tag team matches were that night, and how terrible, how bad, underwhelming that night was in general,
mm-hmm.
I pray it doesn't happen, but I have a weird suspicion that match might underwhelm.
Hopefully
they're too talented not to. I have a feeling it might underwhelm.
I mean, the Revival have a history of that, of like going into a match where, like, that's how they got their hype. They went in kind of like, we're standard, we're good, but they came out legendary. So it's kind of within their, their characteristics to kind of make you believe in them. Especially right now with everybody glued to their TVs and basically at home for the most part. It's like, even if the booking is bad, like, that's the only thing I see. Like, I see where you guys are coming from for sure, but like, we kind of live in an era where people are so fickle. It's like, if the match is good enough to make it worth sitting through all that TV, it might work to their advantage. Because, like, we're the same people that said we hate Mysterio, like the Mysterio family angle.
Oh, that hasn't died.
No, but here's the thing. But like, we are willing to just have them forget about the angle after week 7 and just move on like nothing happened, even though we asked for like continuity and storylines. But if the match is good enough that it makes you forget about all the bad story, I don't know. It kind of feels like it's in the same vein of fickle. You know what I mean? I'm just bringing that. I'm not trying to play devil's.
I don't think so because you have to understand, if you want to sell a legitimate match, you have to have the story to match the match. I know.
No, you're right.
I know the fact that, there's an exception to the rule for some cases, But if it's something that's been continual, you cannot basically just say, "Oh, I'm just waiting for the match to basically make up for a bad story."
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying from a logical standpoint, you're right. I'm saying from the fan standpoint, what if this is what they're going for? Like they're making you not care, only for you to care too much after.
Then that's a terrible way to go. Then you're not
No,
marketing.
but what I'm saying is, does that work in the modern era when you know the fans are that wishy-washy with their opinion? Because you could sit them down through crap television and then give them the match and then they forgive you versus
it's
sitting
happening
them.
WWE a lot. So.
Yeah, but that's my point.
Yeah,
like
and you know what? To touch base on that, like it can work both ways as well. Your point was why not just immediately upon entry do the match,
which we all agree with.
That? No, but the question is, actually, not really, because what happens after that? Tyler brings up a point of when AJ Styles moved to Raw, they gave us AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins, and then after that, nothing. So that can be another out.
That is true.
And in regards to now, you used to talk about, whatchamacallit, the story is tough, but the match, like the storyline has to match the impact of the match.
Just saying,
not necessarily.
But I'm just saying, like, from a fan standpoint, like, how many times? I'm adding to what you're saying. Like, how many times have we sat here and said, "Yo, I just hope they just cut straight to the good part already," or this and that, or we just go straight to that? Because the thing is like, as a fan, if you're sitting through all this miserable television, of course, it's going to push you more and more to the edge to the point where you're just like, "Yo, give me the good stuff already." And I think that in a case like this should have been taken care of much more delicately. I agree, but what I'm saying is that even if we agree this is how it should be in this scenario, that mentality like goes beyond most scenarios. Like even whether it's a good storyline or a bad one, that mentality is pretty consistent among fans where it's like, even if it's not that great, if the match makes up for it, you're gonna really willing to put through it. Like, for example, if Roman Reigns and Jey Uso's storyline was mid, not like great the way it is right now, but mid, right? And it built to the I Quit match we saw at Hell in a Cell. Like, let's take away the cell, but it was just that I Quit match. Randy, I can honestly sit here and say that I can see you in a scenario where you sit there and go like, while I might not have liked the weeks of TV, I think that match made up for it. Yeah. I could believably see you saying that. And for some people and for some bookers, like, I don't think they did this on purpose, but I think in the reactionary sense, it still might work to their advantage, because if you're not talking about it going in and you are talking about it going out, then in their mind, we still did our job.
Exactly.
Now you're looking forward to seeing what
my fear is because of what we previously seen from the previous pay-per-view and certain previous matches on TV, that it might have a chance to underwhelm. I
think you're onto something. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's a possibility of that. I'm saying in the best case scenario for them, based on what they've given you. Like, if they fed you leaves instead of giving you, and then they give you a meal at the end of it, you're willing to be like, you know what? At least I made it to the meal. That's assuming that it's the best case scenario for the match, right? Still got to take into account injuries. Still got to take into account all these other things. Maybe it underwhelms. You may very well be right, but I'm saying that if the match ends up being the dream match that everybody wants, as many points as you bring to the table and as right as you are, it still might work in their favor. And it still might give them a reason to keep booking like that if they know they can get away with it.
And for all intents and purposes, like, we've seen the greater example of what we're delivered right here. You know what I mean? It was like, now bear with me. I could sit there and tell you the bare bones of this rivalry or this like underlying feud from when FTR started to now is similar to a dynamic between a John Cena WWE champion, John Cena in 2007, and Shawn Michaels heading into WrestleMania. Now, bear with me. The dynamic was that they came in, one person knew that the opposition was not fucking with them, and they became allies, but they still weren't fucking with each other. And then you were waiting to the moment. And also this was catered towards like Triple H Cena, so they had to rush the situation where if we were younger and we were looking at 2007, they were like, well, 1 week John Cena's just WWE champion, now he's tag titles with Shawn Michaels, and then we'll complain about, oh, that's just, the Raw tag team champions, the tag division is like, suffering because they're just giving it to the main event. And then you see WrestleMania where John Cena has 2 titles, and you're just like, well, why does John Cena have 2 titles? It shouldn't be the case. Then you have the match, and you're like, I want another. Then you have what we had, the hour-long Iron Man match, and you're just like, I love this rivalry. So to that point, I'm like, I'm coming from the perspective of like, hey, listen, as soon as I heard, like, you have me until you were like, yo, the storyline has to match the match. It doesn't. And that's because
it should, but
it should.
It have to.
It does, exactly. And for that premise, I feel as if, you know, although all of the things that you mentioned were true, and I feel like, you know, it was like it blurred the lines between a hot take. The hot take is the fact that it needed to happen off the jump, which I don't think that needed to be the case. It could have been a multitude of different things. For the love of God, they still have SCU. They have basically team OC. I'm gonna just call it Team OC. Jurassic, all of those different teams, and they had multitude of times to basically build a rivalry.
We're not against what you're saying. Like what we think you're right in the sense that that's how it should be done. But we've seen many a company get away with, like, I didn't even think of the Shawn Michaels John Cena thing, because when I look back on that feud, I usually think of it pretty fondly, because also after that you had like Rated RKO get involved with the beautiful Fatal 4-Way finish and all that stuff. Exactly. But when you actually think about the structure of it, is like the storyline was ever meant for Shawn. They did rush through it. They even integrated it with the other world title main event at Mania that got snubbed. You got to the point where you were just kind of like, they made a good storyline out of nonsense, and it's kind of this booking device that a lot of people would like equate to like digging through mud till you find a diamond.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, you don't like the fact that it's that way when you know, like, especially when you step out of it in the third person and look like they should have booked it like this, especially when you think of the names like Cena and Michaels, right? But in the case of the Young Bucks and the Revival, it's kind of a similar thing. It should be booked better. They had the opportunity to book it better. But something tells me if the match does what it's supposed to do, and it's under the pretext that it does what it needs to do, they might make it worth your while in the end. You might be singing a different tune afterwards. Like, and that's the possibility.
And that, you know, is why when we were talking about the year in retrospective with AEW, I offered that devil's advocate. Because for all the hey, listen, you can switch your eyes, but it's like, I give you a brand right now. I will guarantee you I will see some critics. I will have some things, like I'll be like having some questions.
I'm gonna give you an example right here. I don't mean to be that guy, but remember the Kurt Angle and AJ Styles series in 2008?
Yeah.
Y'all remember that very fondly, right?
Yep.
Do you remember how it actually started? Like, what was the main pushing force behind it? Bump the coalition with Christian, bump the Angle line. It literally started out of AJ managing to get Karen Jarrett to fall in love with him. Yeah, see how your face turned right there?
Yeah.
When you think of Kurt Angle and AJ Styles feuding, you think of
that shit happened.
But here's the thing: you think of all those great matches. It started from that.
I'll do you even more beyond that. Everyone loves the whole Evil Ways gimmick from AJ Styles. The whole angle with the girl who apparently he had like it was some
Claire Lynch, one of the worst angles in TNA history.
It started with Claire Lynch.
It's still the worst angle in TNA history.
Bro.
And it started everything Vince Russo wrote. The reverse ladder match. Yeah. My point being is that started that. And this is one of the reasons why I brought up with the Dominic Mysterio, like the whole Mysterio family thing. Like, I give more credit to companies for continuing through mud to get to those diamonds where, like, you acknowledge that you fucked up and you make something out of it. Because if you acknowledge that you
keep giving me shit. That's the thing.
But here's the thing.
Stop giving us shit.
I agree with you, but here's the thing. They have no excuse. They shouldn't be doing it. But if you can take something that's garbage and turn it into something better, then at least you made it up to me. So you know what I'm saying? At least you made it up to me.
I need a tag because I'm going to ask you a question, Ty.
What's up?
Tag? All right. So you mentioned Dominic Mysterio.
I'm not talking about that kiss on SmackDown.
We don't talk about it.
Hell no.
Continue, please. Just
take based on how they've given us crap and how we have been like thinking that perhaps this could lead to a Murphy being alongside the Mysterios. That kiss, as painful and as
unnecessary as it, yes,
very weird.
It adds to the narrative that Murphy may align with the Mysterios later on.
But didn't we fantasy book this already?
I fantasy book.
Time out. What the fuck is this? Is this Test? Is Test and Shane 1999 fighting over Stephanie?
Mute his mic. I'm gonna answer this question. Look, I'm gonna put it to you like this. I don't like, in a similar vein to Randy, I don't like the way this feud has been handled at all. For all intents and purposes, we should have stopped this feud at SummerSlam. Let Dominic take the L, learn from it, bounce back, and be a better wrestler, right? That's all we really needed to do. They'd opted to continue. And I think that in the situation that we're in, I think it was a bad booking decision to have Aaliyah be booked as virtually a dumbass. Like, they're booking her as the naive 19-year-old girl who, essentially is way too optimistic for her own good, and she's falling for an older man because she sees, like, this good in him. And, like, this is not something foreign to WWE, but it's one of those storylines that doesn't have to happen anymore. Even if we've seen storylines in a similar distasteful vein or just in a similar vein in general, it doesn't have to happen anymore. The problem is it happened. Now we got to deal with it. Like you said, right, Jay? So the question is, where do we go from here? You can use this as a vehicle, as much as I want to vomit, to get us to Murphy being a part of the Mysterio contingent. You can. It's going to be weird as hell now because it's like porn with plot, but yes, you can use it to get there. I think the thing that they need to do is stop making it so corny and actually start focusing on what Murphy brings to the table. Because one of the underlying stories of Seth Rollins and Murphy's deal is that Murphy has this unlimited wealth of potential that Rollins clearly saw, which is why he added him to the group in the first place, and he's the surviving member of that group. Every other member is gone. Every other potential member is gone. So now it's time to start capitalizing on Murphy's potential, whether that leads to the Mysterios becoming tag champions, Ray going down with a storyline injury and Murphy stepping in, whether it be Murphy showing more resistance to Seth Rollins, which I think they've already been kind of like poking at as is, right? Now's the time to focus more on Murphy. I think the smart move is to stop using Aaliyah as a vehicle to tell these stories when you can easily just let Murphy speak for himself. That's where I stand with it. If you want a U-turn out of this and stop giving Meltzer reasons to give you the most distasteful storyline award, which is the only award I take is like Bible, because God, when you look back at how many times WWE's won this award, they did this with Eddie like 10 years ago with the whole mention Eddie every 5 seconds, right? So I think that's what you need to do. I don't like the fact that this is the avenue we're taking, like Randy. I don't like the fact that it was booked this way. It didn't have to happen this way. But since we're stuck with it, let's just have Aaliyah be essentially, if they're going to play this naive character, let her be the cheerleader for the group, right? And have Murphy like really pull his potential, have there be friction between him and Dominic, have Ray warm up to him first and kind of be like, you know what, I see potential in you, man. You kind of remind me of some of the guys I used to rock with in the 90s. And none of them were that ripped, but you get my idea. The point being, there's my signature catchphrase.
Whatchamacallit? What's his face? Mop.
We basically fantasy booked this already. We basically did it like this. Murphy gaining the trust, like you said, Murphy gaining the trust of Murphy. He's gaining the trust of Rey Mysterio.
Murphy.
Gaining the trust
I want Matt Silva person.
And then after that, he goes from there, and Dominic basically joins up with Seth because he's like, listen, I can't trust my daddy. Maybe I could trust you.
Daddy was.
Wait, he said that.
Oh,
and he wasn't there.
But that's the hope, and you hope that you hope there's at least something conclusive with it, because like I personally think this storyline revolves around two people, Dominic and Murphy. Dominic's blatantly obvious. Murphy's more like the under. It's sort of like in Dragon Ball, where it's like the main character is Goku, but you could also make the case that it's for Gohan, especially into the Cell Saga. Like, you have these situations. I just don't want them to kiss anymore. Can we just move past this?
Yeah, let's.
Like,
let's
I just
pass that.
It's a gut wrenching
That's
thing, but it's like, you're going the trajectory. I'll end it off with this last hot take, and we haven't talked about Raw too much, if not at all. So we got to tie it in. Of course, Monday Night Raw.
I don't like porn with plot.
So,
That could be taken completely out of context.
with Monday Night Raw. So hot take city. Keith Lee, as we know, was a member who was put into the Survivor Series matchup. He was basically a finalist in the Survivor Series match last year. This year, he's a participant. And, you have other NXT superstars or alumni and Matt Riddle and
Riddle. Only Riddle now.
Now Riddle. And more or less, you have Mustafa Ali as well. My hot take is, unfortunately, Ali, I don't think, has been in a part of the matchup, and Riddle just lost a Survivor Series qualifier match. But that being said, just fantasy booking here. If they were to somehow, from today, I don't know what's going on Monday Night Raw right now, but from today, storyline-wise, basically find a way to make Retribution a formidable powerhouse at the pay-per-view itself and do something very groundbreaking in the match, it would redeem all of their misfortunes.
I got one.
Is Mustafa Ali part of the tag match? Like the
He's not.
Okay, I'll get to that point.
He's supposed to be teasing something tonight, so
I'm gonna fantasy book it then.
Yeah.
Let's just do it like this. We'll do it. Let's just say they do the Raw versus SmackDown 5-on-5, whatever it goes on. And it'll probably get down to, well, we don't know who's in it right now. I mean, we have a few people. I know Keith Lee is on the Raw side. Bray's supposed to be fighting for a spot tonight. Who else supposed to be fighting for a spot? Drew McIntyre's supposed to be fighting for a spot.
Drew's on.
So,
Drew
is in it. Oh, it's for who's going to be the leader. So
I think Drew's the leader.
I think that's what they're fighting for tonight. But anyway, Bray Wyatt already had a run-in with Retribution. Keith Lee has a tie to Retribution. On the SmackDown side, I don't know if anybody on the SmackDown side. I know Kevin Owens is in, and I don't know who else is in. But the point is that get it down to like the final two on both sides. And then have Retribution come in and just beat everybody down and end the show just like that. That redeems them in my eyes, at least, because they were a rogue stable. I'm not saying, okay, I hate the way I see Tyler's face like, but it's like it works because they're a rogue stable. First off, you messed up by giving them contracts. You messed up by acknowledging the fact that they're now WWE superstars. You don't do that. If they're so fully against this, they need to be rogue from beginning to end.
I have a counterpart.
So, all right, I'm a hot tag to you in a minute. So it's like, what you do is this: you have them just run roughshod, have them beat down the whole Raw and SmackDown, whoever's left. Even if they really want to make a statement, this is Taker's 30th anniversary, have Taker come out and have them beat down Taker.
No, you know what? No, I'm gonna stop that right there. Because every time one of these renegades, no, we're gonna stop. Not because I'm a fan, but because it doesn't work. I'm gonna tell you why it doesn't work.
Okay, go ahead.
Because every renegade stable that attacks Undertaker has no continuity. When Nexus did it, they buried Taker. It was supposed to lead to Wade Barrett and Taker WrestleMania 27. We had no resolution of that except for a dark match on SmackDown when Wade Barrett was like bare knuckle brawler. That was years after the fact. Shield attacked Undertaker and it was a big statement, but there was no real follow-up outside of Taker teaming with Team Hell No to fight the Shield, I think.
Yeah.
That was random.
But that's a follow-up though.
That's not a follow-up. That was Daniel Bryan being hilarious. The point being is that there's no real, like, you do it and then
yeah.
what I would want, I want the opposite,
Okay.
which is why I asked, is Mustafa Ali in the tag match? I think it personally would be more interesting for me if Mustafa Ali was one of the sole survivors of the Raw tag match. And I'll tell you why. The points that you brought up exemplify the reason why I wanted to happen. They were a rogue stable. They attacked everybody. And it led to them being given contracts. They've lost momentum. All they've done has been they've been embarrassed.
They've been losing
for weeks. What better way to make the company eat it than to have Retribution be the reason why Raw wins? Imagine if Mustafa Ali, on his own power, with all of the anger, all of this desire to prove why Retribution matters, because the main thing about Retribution is we're overlooked, we have the potential, you didn't see it in us, so we wanted to take our own opportunities. They take advantage of this opportunity. Ali, on his mafia businessman type mess, goes, okay, I'm going to take this spot in the tag match, and I'm going to show you why Retribution should be taken seriously. And he, on his own accord, sacrifices and puts himself through hell to make sure that Raw wins, because he is part of the Raw brand. He is a WWE superstar now. He has a contract. Well, he's always had a contract, but you get the idea. Retribution has contracts now. He makes WWE pay for ignoring them by showing why they had potential in the first place. Ali being one of the main reasons for Raw winning would force management to sit there and be, okay, you can't ignore us anymore. You have to take us seriously. Because I was willing to do all of this just so Raw can win.
So,
I think that, not to cut you off, but I think that gives a better springboard to add credibility to Retribution, because if they went back to being a rogue group attacking everybody, then we've just ran in a circle and we're back to square one. And that doesn't make it any more interesting, because they've already done that and it didn't work, and that's why they're in the dumps in the first place, at least in terms of how they've spun the narrative right now.
So we fantasy booked something a while back. Awesome fantasy booking, by the way, Kid Ty. I do believe that's. I don't even think my idea could top it. I just want to put it out there. We fantasy booked this a while back, or at least hinted to it. Keith Lee has been struggling on the main roster. He's in this right now.
Yeah.
Mustafa Ali and Retribution, they continue to get just the Raw is gonna take place the same way it is leading up to the pay-per-view, and he continues to make these promos, these Riddle-like promos, similar to how Bray Wyatt did, things of that nature. Yeah. And then leading up to the pay-per-view, the week before, he's like, you guys don't think we'll be heard. You guys must think that we're a mockery. You guys must think that we failed with our mission. At times I think about it, we did. We may have. I may have. But I've been missing my heavy. And this Sunday, you will find out my heavy. Survivor Series comes. Keith Lee once again is in the final, is in the mix as one of the final members of Survivor Series. Retribution comes in. They do their whole lights flickering, all that stuff. And then they come into the ring and they're about to attack, but this time they don't. Why? Because they have a mole in the ring that becomes the sole survivor of Survivor Series. That is Keith Lee. And that way we can tie in the whole thing of course, we've been talking about for weeks, the fact that Mia Yim and Keith Lee are both two separate entities on the main roster, which is random. We can just kill off all of that and add in the credibility of having a superstar with at least some form of credibility on the main roster. Because again, it was not just a month ago he beat Randy Orton. So you have that, you put him on, and in that vein, of course, it'll there'll be questions along the line from that point going forward. Who's the leader of Retribution, or who's the and all these different types of stuff. But you establish something worth standing for, and there's a force that is already to be reckoned with now enlisted in Retribution. Now, again, I believe Kid Ty's point out. I like it as dope because I feel like Mustafa Ali can hold his own in the ring, and I feel like he is capable
But even
enough
taking your idea into account, if Keith Lee's the sole survivor, you have a scenario where he wins it, and then he and whoever else is the sole survivor with them are celebrating, and then the lights go out, and then Keith Lee joins Retribution at that moment, which would give Retribution a big win. Or you could have a scenario where Keith Lee and they're about to it's 2-on-1, like SmackDown only has one person left, and Keith, like, the lights go out and Keith and them beat up the sole survivor on Raw and leave him left for dead, and SmackDown wins and costs Raw the match. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. And in the end, I would like to see that, because especially with Keith Lee now wearing this damn bodysuit shit, it also fits with the whole, it hits with the whole Retribution narrative. My thing is, like, what I want personally, the main objective, regardless of how it's spun, right, is I don't want Retribution to go, like I said, I want continuity. I want them to play off of their mistakes. Retribution is not the Shield. They act like the Shield, but they're not. We've seen this before. People are used to these stables where you attack everybody, and that's how you make your presence known. We've gone through that for years. If you took the different route and you went the route of, we tried it, it didn't work for us, let's try to take the opportunities that we can and build our credibility back. I think in terms of a recovery, which is what Backstage Brawl is good at. We do pretty good recovery storylines out here because this company's ass sometimes. But what I'm saying, like, if you do a recovery storyline, it's like, oh yeah, we fucked up. Yeah, we made some mistakes. We miscalculated. We got a little overconfident, but we still believe in ourselves. We know we're the shit. We just got to think harder. And they take advantage of opportunities and have you thinking. Now they're on some mafia shit where it's like, oh, we're going to take an opportunity, but you don't think you're going to get the best result out of it, do you? We do things for ourselves. Similar to the Hurt business, where it's like, it's just business. We don't care who we do business with. As long as we get what we want, we get what we want. If Retribution does a similar deal where we will take opportunities, but we'll make you regret it, it fits their narrative to a T and makes them a more interesting group. And it shows actual character growth for the group, because we started out as renegades. That didn't work. But our leader's a hacker who thinks of things in advance. So he miscalculated. Now we're on a roll and a momentum of great thoughts equal great actions, which equals great business for us, which means that we're going to finally get what we want. We're going to politic our ass to the top.
Real quick before People's Champ goes, I will say to quickly tie in, if they were to use the avenue to have Keith Lee join and cost Raw to lose, they can have Braun Strowman and Keith Lee as the final participants to offer that continuity to that storyline that is currently ensuing.
And it would make a lot of sense for all those guys to jump fucking Braun Strowman.
Yeah.
Great sacrificial limb.
It kind of brought me an idea that I can bring to the table, because I know we got to end this real so soon. Before we hopped on, I posed a question about making Survivor Series valuable, especially as a big four, especially when we're talking about brand supremacy. With Ali, and that possibility that could take place for Team Raw, whoever wins as a sole survivor, we have TLC. I think TLC is the final pay-per-view of 2020.
Yes.
Also, you can either use it for TLC or for the Royal Rumble. Would it be wise and preferable to have the sole survivor become, whoever's the sole survivor of whatever team, become a number one contender to either title? If to either title, depending on which side wins. Like if Mustafa Ali was to take the pin, because of storyline continuity. Because remember, even if Keith Lee were to take that victory, or Mustafa Ali would take the victory for that, and they will go to that route, he still has an open story against Randy Orton. That story's still out, and of course, Keith Lee as well. And assuming that Daniel Bryan's gonna be part of this team, or even Kevin Owens, who's part of that team, say he wins, because now Jey Uso's officially part of the family, quote unquote, Roman's new stable. Say if Kevin Owens wins as a sole survivor, he and Roman have history. it's not an open story right now, but it's a story that you can add another chapter to it.
So
could they be the number one contender to the champion? Because it kind of gives them a reward. You want our brand something, and you're the sole survivor, so let's give you this. And because you're credible enough to face a champion, you could be number one contender.
So is this built in the story itself, or is it like
for Raw it can build the story. Story is there for Raw, for Raw side.
No. You're not understanding. So is it like before the match even happens, this is assured, like whoever wins is getting it, or is it after the story? Because I feel like if it's after the story, I think that like there's been a lot of those different stories of which that narrative has been implied. Before the story,
or I would assume
that could be a different thing where they throw that carrot before, like, hey, if you win, instead of after the story, like, since I won. You get what I'm saying?
I'd rather do see if it were me, like I probably do it before. So now that this means it means a lot, because now if you still got all these slots open, certain guys who want the main title will definitely be on there. Like they'll bring their A game just to get on that team. Because I know for Raw you already have a certain amount of slots left. I think you have two or three left. For SmackDown, I think it's just. I think you have a little bit more. I think it's like 3-ish. I think because I think 2 qualified.
I have something.
So
for that.
I think that it definitely helps. It definitely opens up the competition factor because now it makes people step their game up. Because if you put that caveat, that little carrot into it, it's a competition. It's a competition within the competition because you want to be the sole survivor, but you also want to win for your brand. But at the same time, it causes a little bit of lack of chemistry issues because you want to get that. You want to be the one to outlast everybody.
Here's what I'll say to that. Before we recorded today, I talked to JJ on the phone, and I told him that, one of the things that a lot of people have criticisms of for Survivor Series is the fact that you have these matches, these tag matches, especially in the brand split eras of the Survivor Series tag matches, where there is no real goal other than bragging rights, to the point where in the same year as holding Survivor Series, they held a separate pay-per-view called Bragging Rights, where you'd win a trophy for brand supremacy when you could have just did it at Survivor Series. But even then, bragging rights is cool, but it shouldn't be your top priority in winning a match. There should be something more on the line. And I told him that I thought it would be smart if the winner of the tag match, that brand would get the number 30 spot in the Rumble and some draft picks that they can use for the next year's draft so that they have something on the line. And that the winners of the match, whether they win dominating wise, like 5, like they don't lose any of their members, or they have sole survivors, the people who contributed would be, gifted like maybe number 1 contender spots or marquee matches on the show to prove why they should be moving up the ladder. There should be a reward. I agree with you that there should be a reward. And I think the smartest way you could do that with the current situation is to basically say, look, we know there was a draft a couple weeks ago. This brand supremacy thing doesn't really matter that much to you guys because, like, SmackDown and Raw basically switched mid-cards. That's what the draft basically did, right? You took SmackDown's mid-card, put it on Raw, Raw's mid-card, put it on SmackDown, so nothing really feels that different. So for them, there's not really much incentive. Even AJ on Raw Talk brought up the fact there's not much of a difference between Raw and SmackDown besides the colors. So what you could do is, in order to give,
SmackDown's better.
But here's the thing. But in terms of aesthetically, it's like now you just brought over what SmackDown was doing over to Raw and what Raw was doing over to SmackDown. It doesn't feel like the product's changed that you usually get from those drafts and trades. So what I'm saying is, what they could do is to give the wrestlers some incentive, because if same shit, different day, same shit, different show, what they could do is basically go, okay, so you guys got moved over. You don't have much loyalty to Raw because you just got here. I'm going to give you a reason why you should fight for Raw, or I should fight for SmackDown. Because if y'all win and we get these draft picks and the 30 spot in the Royal Rumble, I will not reimburse, but like I will gift you a number 1 contenders match, like be like based on where they are in their standings. Like Sammy, hey, hey, Kevin, you don't really like this Sammy guy, right? Even though we saw them on Talking Smack, but that's a whole nother thing. Like, hey, I know you got some unfinished business. I know you want some gold. You want a chance to, get your career back on track. How about I let you fight Sammy? You got his number anyway, right? Or go to AJ, be like, hey, AJ, when was the last time you sniffed that WWE championship? I know you could take Drew, and basically that's what you get as a victory. Like, you give us something, we'll give you something back, which would cause the turmoil in the tag because everybody wants their own opportunity. But it would also allow the match to feel more high stakes, like you're saying. And I think that the fact that there are side effects to putting a reward because there's other rewards that are at stake is a great idea, Ren. And a lot of people have brought that up. You bringing up the Soul Survivor thing. Imagine they win dominantly and they all get an opportunity, or they all lose their opportunity because they got eliminated. So the Soul Survivor benefits the most, like what you were saying in this scenario.
I would say this. If they win definitively or by decision, right? That team, that show's team, whoever, that show's team would get the number 30 spot at the Royal Rumble. And then, of course, like you said, draft picks. But for the Soul Survivor, depending on who it is, they would get a number 1 contender spot. Say if it's like 2 people left.
No, yeah, the reward can change depending.
The reward can change depending on the amount of people that are still in the match. But if it's just Soul Survivor and it's like it's down to the wire, a la last 3 years, Randy Orton, 03, 04, or 05, when Orton basically three-peated as Soul Survivor, you reward that person with a chance to become a champion by giving him a number 1 contender spot to see if that person can hang with the main show's champion.
Yeah, there's other there's a lot of different variables with that. Kid Ty seems to, the connection is a little wonky, but it is what it is. But I mean that's all encompassed to say that whatchamacallit, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can potentially think about with the.
We can cover that at a different time.
Exactly. So with that, Monday Night Raw is going on as we speak.
AJ Styles is on as we speak.
AJ Styles is on as we speak. We gonna have to watch the phenomenal one. But as for now, we catch you later. Golden Child, People's Champ, Kid Ty, Diamond Cutter. Enjoy your week.
Go vote! Go vote!
Go vote, definitely.
Oh God, we're BET. All right, cut it.
Right?
Let's cut it.
Yeah.